For Lord, it's your words that are important, that are life. So, Father, help us. We ask your Spirit. We thank you that your Spirit is here with us this morning. We thank you for that. In your name. Amen. Don't really need to speak at all this morning because you just sang. The word you just sang is everything. But as soon as I've taken the time to prepare, I will. Love. Love. One expression of love is choosing to do something you prefer not to do. Something you prefer not to do. You do not have to do it. You incur a cost of some sort on yourself, but your action will benefit the person you love. There are many expressions of love, but this morning I want to concentrate on this particular expression of love. You prefer not to do it. You don't have to do it. It's going to cost you something, but it's going to benefit the person you love. And in the embarrassment of my wife, I'm going to give you a little personal indication, because in good marriages, this happens. What I'm going to tell you happens all the time. But this is the very minimum, as I see it, of an expression of love. The example is that we usually have a cup of coffee in the afternoon. And Lynn prefers me to make the coffee. Because, see, I have the barista touch sometimes. I never have the barista touch Sundays. I don't know why not. But Lynn thinks I've got it during the week. And after lunch, we usually do things in the morning together or whatever, or go shopping or whatever. But after lunch, we often are doing our own projects. And about 3 o'clock, Lynn will call out, "Oh, would you like a cup of coffee?" Now, I say, "Okay, I'll make it." I'd prefer not to make it because I'm busy. Don't you know, sweetheart, don't you know I'm busy? So I prefer not to. I don't have to make it. Lynn wouldn't love me any less if I didn't make it. She doesn't love me anymore because I do make it. She just loves the coffee. It costs me. It costs me time. It breaks my thinking, my concentration, what I'm doing. But I know it will bless my beautiful wife. And so I get up and I put those other things aside and I make the coffee. And then we sit together usually for half an hour or so and talk or read or chat, but spend time together. And then I go back to the work I was doing before, usually on the computer. And you know what? The reverse is true. On countless occasions of Lynn doing things for me. And that's what a good marriage is, giving and giving time. To me, that's the very least we can do for each other. But remember, don't want to do it. Don't have to do it. It's going to cost me, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want you to reflect on your own lives, how you interact with other people. How often do you accept that challenge? Or do you just say, no, I don't do that. That's not my job. Now we come to the greatest love story that was ever told. Mark chapter 15. And it's good that we've had communion. Thank you, Dickie. It's good that we've had communion this morning. The greatest love story ever told. But first, we need to make sure that we understand who Jesus is. So we look at John 3:16. That tells us that God gave his only Son. So Jesus is the Son of God. Matthew 26:53 in the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus is talking to his disciples. And his disciples are getting all panicking and worried about, here comes the Romans, here comes to take you away. And Jesus says, I could ask my Father for thousands of angels and he would send them in a month's time. No, he would send them instantly. And then in Mark 14:36, Jesus declared, Father, your will, not mine. So we see from those three verses that Jesus, God's Son, had tremendous authority beyond our comprehension. He also had the free will to choose his own path. He didn't have to suffer anything. He freely chose to suffer out of love for us because it was the only way. Now let's have a look at this greatest love story. And we're going to go back to the end of Mark 14. And we have a religious trial. And it was illegal. And the early Christian readers and Jews, they knew it was illegal. They knew the protocols. So it was held at night. It was held in a private house, not a court. There was no actual charge stated before the trial. Jesus was arrested without charge. False witnesses, testimony conflicted, never held to account. There was no opportunity given for any witnesses to be called in Jesus' defense. And Jesus was convicted for blasphemy on his own response to a leading question from the judge about his divinity, with no effort from the judge to validate his statement. Just because he said it, think of our courts. What would have happened? What would we do? We'd be screaming, saying it was not right. No, it was illegal. But you know what? Remember I just told you before who Jesus is. Jesus chose not to stop it. He let it go. He let it happen. And then the story continues into Mark 15 with a political trial. And we need to go across all four Gospels to get the full picture. So I'll be jumping. I've gone across all four and tried to pull the elements together. And Jesus was taken to Pilate for punishment under Roman law, with a new charge of Jesus claiming to be king. Now, it was interesting, Pilate's position at the time, he was between a rock and a hard place, as we often say, because there'd been a couple of riots. The Jews had rioted a couple of times before, and so Caesar wasn't happy with Pilate. Hey, one more riot, and Pilate, you're gone. But his wife, his precious wife, had a dream. And his wife said, don't touch it. Don't go anywhere near it. Disaster will happen if you don't free Jesus. There's going to be disaster. So, what's Pilate do? Doesn't want to riot. He's listening to his wife. He trusts her. But he goes down the road of appeasement. Now in John 18:30, Pilate demanded to know, this is his first thing. Remember, he's trying to release Jesus. He really wants to let Jesus off. I think probably for his own benefit, not for Jesus's. Right? He's got self-interest, but nevertheless, he wants to let Jesus off. So he demanded, well, what's the actual charge? And they couldn't state the charge. They were a bit vague, so he said, well, you take Jesus. You sort him out. And they said, oh, well, he's done all these things. Done lots of stuff. Well, you go and sort him out. Jesus kept quiet. Mark 15:2. He was hoping that Jesus would deny that he was his kingship, because they finally said, oh, no, look, he says he's king, wants to be a king. So we go across there, Mark, and he says, oh, are you king of the Jews? And Jesus doesn't defend himself. He just simply says, well, that's what you say. It's as you say. He said it. I didn't. I haven't said in front of you, I am king of the Jews, or yes, I am king of the Jews. He just said, well, that's what you said. So his implication is that Pilate needs to verify it for himself. Hey, you're the judge. You find out. You work it out for yourself. You get the witnesses. And Mark 15 verse 5. Pilate allowed Jesus opportunity to defend himself. Guess what? Jesus said nothing. Would we say nothing in a court? Or would we jump up out of our seat and scream out, I'm innocent. I didn't do it. That's lies. Jesus said nothing. Luke 23:7. Pilate's getting desperate. He hears Herod's around. Herod's in town. So, Jesus is part of Herod's mob. Send him to Herod. Let Herod deal with him. Sends him to Herod. Herod's happy. He wanted to meet Jesus, wanted to have a chat to Jesus. But Jesus kept quiet, said nothing. And Herod was amazed that he hadn't said anything in his defense. But Jesus said nothing. In Mark 16:11, Pilate offered to release Jesus because he was hoping that the people were actually going to support him. But the priests stirred up the people to cry out for Barabbas. Jesus said nothing. John 19:1, Pilate took Jesus and scourged him, hoping it would satisfy the people. Jesus let it happen. Matthew 27:24. Finally, Pilate released Barabbas, declared Jesus was innocent, symbolically washing his hands. I got nothing to do with this. Don't blame me. It's not my fault. I wasn't to blame. He said to the Jews, you see to it. Jesus let it happen. And it's interesting that since that day, the name that's been remembered throughout all Christianity in the Nicene Creed is suffered under Pontius Pilate. He thought he wasn't going to have anything to do with it, yet his is the name that is remembered But you know what? In all this, Jesus did not attempt to defend himself or resist the authorities even once. People were very disappointed because they thought Jesus was going to be a conquering Messiah. Release them, free them instantly. And they allowed the chief priests and the Jewish leaders to stir him up and cry out for Barabbas. How often maybe do we allow, because of our anger or our upset about something, allow someone to stir us up and do the wrong thing? They called out for Barabbas, and it's interesting because you know the name Barabbas? Bar means son, and Abbas means father. So they were calling out, release the son of father. Release the son of father. And what's Jesus? Jesus is the son of the Father. They didn't know what they were saying. And at any point in these trials, remember, Jesus could have called down thousands of angels. He could have finished it. But he chose instead to suffer. He wanted to demonstrate the hearts of the religious leaders and demonstrate his love for us. But wait, unfortunately, there's more. There's more. Because normal practice, once you were convicted to be crucified, normal practice was that was it. You were sent to the jail, prison, kept in under lock and key, and then taken up to be crucified. That was the normal Roman practice. So what happened to Jesus? Mark 15:15. Pilate knew Jesus was innocent, but he delivered Jesus after he had scourged him to be crucified. And scourging involved using, you see it there in the picture, a leather thong with multiple strands. And you know what was attached to those strands? Bone and metal. So those little lumps on that strand are not lumps of thong, they are lumps of bone and metal. It ripped the person to pieces. You imagine. So I did think of having some props this morning. I thought I'd make a scourge and bring it up and offer our beautiful returned pastor if he wanted to come up and be scourged. But I knew what I was worried about. I was really scared. I knew he would probably say yes. So I thought, no, I won't do that. But Jesus was scourged. And scourging often caused death. Didn't this time. But Jesus chose to suffer. Mark 15:17, the Roman guards dressed Jesus up, spat on him, mocked him, pushed a crown of thorns on his head. Even just a small thorn can hurt. Imagine, crown of thorns shoved on your head. Add that to the scourging. What would we do if we had 10,000s upon thousands of angels? If we could do whatever we wanted, I think we'd be saying, that's it, enough. You're gone, you're dead. But what did Jesus do? Chose to suffer. Did he have to? No. Did he want to? No. Could he not? Could he have had free will and said, I won't do it? Yes. But he chose to suffer. Mark 15:21. Jesus was humiliated as they marched him through the streets with the cross. King, a little sign out the front saying, King of the Jews, and he couldn't even carry his own cross. He chose to suffer. Mark 15:23. They were offering a concoction of myrrh and wine. The reason for that was to deaden the pain, to zonk you out. It was the drug of the time. So you didn't feel the pain. It wasn't heroin, no, it was wine and myrrh. But Jesus refused it. He wasn't finished. He didn't want to be zonked out. He needed to be able to focus. So guess what he did? He chose to suffer. 15:24-32, Jesus was publicly shamed on the cross. Now we see lovely pictures of Jesus on the cross, and I had a picture right at the beginning and at the end of Jesus on the cross, and there's a nice little drape over him. Oh, no, that's not what it was. They were stripped totally naked on the cross. The final degradation, the final shame, to be exposed like that, totally naked in front of everybody. Think about it. Jesus chose to suffer. And the final thing, and I'm sure that Jesus knew this was coming, which is probably why he said, if there's any other way. He knew this was coming, but like many things, we know they're coming, but when they actually arrive, they can be devastating to us. We think we'll be all right, but when they arrive, we just go to pieces. And this is in Mark 15:33-34. God withdrew his light from the world. There was darkness over the whole land, and Jesus cried, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" And just thinking about that stirs the emotion in me. How hard that must have been. Totally alone. Jesus continues to choose to suffer. And 15:37, finally at 3 p.m, Jesus declared, "It is finished," and breathed his last. The veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The temple veil was the veil that restricted access to God. It was torn open. And to everyone's amazement, Jesus was dead. Why were they amazed at all that they'd done to him? And he's up there on the cross. Why were they amazed? Because it normally took 4 or 5 days for someone who was crucified to die. They hung there alive for 4 or 5 days normally, unless soldiers or someone came along and killed them deliberately, or they used to break their knees so that they'd collapse and pull down on themselves. But Jesus was dead. Pilate was amazed. What? He's dead already? You see, Jesus chose when to lay his life down, which just shows the power and authority that Jesus has. And he says, "It's finished." And finally in Mark 15:43, Joseph of Arimathea finally gets the courage he needs. Maybe he finally realized that this man really was the Son of God. Maybe that revelation finally came to him. Finally, there was an assurity to him. And he thought, "Oh no, what have I done? How can I fix this?" And he thought, "I know what I'll do. I'll go to Pilate, I'll get Jesus' body, I'll wrap it in the best linen I can, and I'll lay it in my tomb. I'll protect it. I'll honour it. And that's what he did. You know, after they rolled the stone in front of the tomb, everybody went home rejoicing and happy. No. They went, they should have gone home rejoicing and happy because they knew 3 days later, they'd been told, Jesus told them, I'll only be there for 3 days and then I'll be back. Don't worry about it. I'm coming back. No. They went away distraught, devastated. They believed it was finished. Their hope of the Messiah freeing them was finished. They were devastated. They had no hope. You might have felt that way sometimes in your own personal situations. Things have happened, and you get to a point where you just think, there's no hope. No hope. And that's how they felt. But what did Jesus mean when he said it's finished? He meant that man's spiritual separation, separation from God, was finished. The price had been paid in full, and redemption was now available to all who chose to believe. That's what Jesus meant when he said, it is finished. And that's why he could lay down his life. I've done the job. Father, I've done it. It's finished. Redemption has been brought to the earth. Now, when we conclude, I think it's in a couple of weeks' time with Mark 16, it will show us how much we depend on visual, actual experiences to maintain and strengthen our faith. But I want to leave you with these thoughts. It's an old song. I thought of singing it to you, but decided not to. And unlike Brie, I won't even try. He paid a debt he did not owe. I owed a debt I could not pay. I needed someone to wash my sins away, and now I sing a brand new song, Amazing Grace, all day long. Christ Jesus paid a debt that I could never pay. Love. The greatest love story ever told. We can share that with the world. We can remember it ourselves and strengthen ourselves. And I want you just to sit quietly for a moment and reflect on how much Jesus loves us and how much more we can give back to him. And I would encourage you to come tonight to more. Do you have to? No. Would you prefer not to? Maybe. Will it cost you your time? Yes. Would it bless Jesus? Oh, so much. So much. When we spend time with him, when we come to church, when we're in prayer, at home when we're reading our Bibles or just talking to the Lord, when we're helping someone else, when we're showing love to others, Jesus is looking at us and he is so, so happy. He says, well done, good and faithful servants. Let's just reflect for a moment.